Hey guys, welcome back to another show, another episode of the RepPath podcast. Today we have an interesting topic because we're going to talk about the challenges of selling when you're a smaller vendor. Some of you may have been in this situation, so you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's definitely not the most fun. It's not a fun space to be in going against these big Goliaths out there, but you can win. That's the whole point of this talk. We'll talk about that. And before we get more into details of the actual discussion today, as always, guys, we are live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. We also are on every podcast platform known to man. We do these shows every Monday and Wednesday at 3 p.m. So if anybody wants a recording, because I get asked every week, where has this episode been recorded, please go on YouTube and check and become a member. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Unfiltered Medical Sales Coaching. Also, please reach out to me. Very excited about the RepPath Academy. We continue to grow. We continue to get individuals placed and help them break into the medical sales industry all around the country. So doing a lot of exciting stuff there. So feel free to reach out to me there for more details. And that's it. So enough housekeeping stuff. Today's topic, challenges of selling as a smaller vendor. I've been on both sides of this, guys. So I'm, pretty knowledgeable in the space of being on the smaller side where, it's tough to make an impact. And then also being on the big pharma or big device side where, you're the big boy in the playground. And there's pros and cons to both sides, but we're really going to focus today on what it's like to be a smaller vendor. Okay. So just to set the landscape of what this looks like, for any of you that aren't in the industry, a lot of these companies, a lot of these institutions, it doesn't matter both sides, both on the hospital side, the IDNs, the integrated delivery networks keep getting bigger and bigger. IDNs now are combining into bigger IDNs. So you got two IDNs coming together to make one bigger one. I know locally in New Jersey, Hackensack was its own monster, network to begin with. And, over the past couple of years has combined with St. Barnabas. So now you got the two of them that are being combining into a large IDN. So on the company side and the medical sales side, companies are doing the same thing. A lot of companies out there are constantly acquiring smaller companies. They now become the branch or a different therapeutic area of a larger company. So to be a smaller vendor and compete with that, you have to understand the landscape. Okay. It's an uphill battle. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I'm not going to say, hey guys, I'm going to be all positive. It's a great situation. You definitely want to be the smaller player. Being the smaller player is very, very difficult. Okay. These companies, they're large that you're going up against. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of reps. They have a lot of knowledge. They have a lot of relationships in this space. So to come in there and think that you're going to make changes and make an impact overnight, it's not going to happen, guys. I hope it does for you. Maybe you'll shock me. Please share your success stories if it does happen, but it's very difficult. So you got to understand, what you're up against, because it's not there are avenues and little niche opportunities that you can capitalize on to break in this space, but it's definitely a difficult space. And this is what a lot of healthcare is. So if you have this amazing idea that you want to start your own company and get out there because you see a lot of flaws and you want to go against, the big guys in whatever space you are in medical, whether it's device, pharma, diagnostics, whatever it is, realize those big players are not going to just bow down and go away. They're going to be there. Okay. So it's going to be an uphill battle. So what are some of the challenges when you're dealing, with these consolidations and these bigger players? Well, first off, they centralize the buying power. Okay. So it's harder to break in, where before the consolidation, you could have 20, 50 targets, who knows how many that you could have approached. And now they're purchased and now they're under one large umbrella of a huge company. So now it's going to be very difficult, or excuse me, a large, for instance, if it's a large IDN now it's more difficult because you could have had relationships like I'm talking about at Barnabas, but now Barnabas, those same contacts might not be the main decision maker at the new IDN. So it limits the amount of people you can get in touch with. It limits the number of targets that you have. So now it's being centralized. So you have less people to go in and make an impact with. That's a challenge right off the bat. By having that centralized buying power and consolidating, it also results in longer, more complicated sales cycles. You don't just walk in and get the approval. They have to get the okay from many other decision makers within the organization. And again, this can be both in your IDNs and also the companies that you're going up against. And we're going to talk about that when it's your competition, where this is actually an advantage for you in terms of decision making to be at a smaller company. The other challenge is when you're dealing with say a certain IDN, they're used to working with these big players a lot. Okay, they have relationships with them. They know it's a quote unquote safe bet. So if your company comes out there with a new product, say in pain management or cardiology, and they're already working with, an example would be Medtronic. They've been working with Medtronic for years. And I've competed with Medtronic in both the spine space and also the cardiology space. Great, amazing company. They are not easy to compete with. They're not, because these companies are used to working with them. So if they're a safe bet, and you have two equal products in their mind, they're going to go with the bigger company, the one they know that they've worked with in the past. It's just human nature, guys. So you got to be prepared for that and realize that these relationships are there, and may have had problems in the past. You never know. It has nothing to do. Well, every company has something or a rep that didn't, provide 100% satisfaction with their service. But again, they know who they are. So odds are, even with a few mess ups, they're going to lean towards going back to them as opposed to this new unknown company with some new young rep that they know nothing about. That uncertainty creates fear. And these companies, the certainty that they know of working with them in the past relaxes and eases that fear. So that's a big hurdle to overcome. Lastly, it could be just straight up volume. I mean, I've had deals where hospitals wanted to do large test trials with us. We couldn't even approve some of the test trials because we weren't big enough to handle some of the volume that these companies wanted to get involved in. So that's a challenge right off the bat. Some of these companies can say, and I know this happened a lot during COVID with a lot of distributors. Product was running out everywhere. Product was scarce. But a lot of these smaller companies, one hospital, they couldn't even fulfill their requirements during COVID because it was just too large. So they couldn't even sign one contract because they're a small distributor. They can get them product here and there to bridge the gap, but it was fractions of what they really needed. So even though some of those big companies may not have been able to get the product like the rest of the world, once things got back to normal, they're able to handle those large volume demands that the hospitals will ask for. So to compete against that, it was nearly impossible because your company didn't have the bandwidth to create that kind of volume. So that's another challenge. So the key is to differentiate, guys. You want to get in this space. If you're going to be a me too and a small company and a small and have a limited amount of resources, it's even more difficult to be able to make an impact. So differentiation is the key. Okay, if you can come in there with a unique innovation and get in front of these decision makers, that increases your chances. Because a lot of times hospital systems have in place where they'll only take, say, 2 or 3 vendors in a certain space. Sometimes they only want to deal with one vendor. When I was in the spine space, there was three key competitors, and a lot of hospitals only would have room for one or maybe two vendors. They didn't want to deal with three. So now you have to negotiate in terms of pricing. I mean, pricing is always something that hospitals are going to try to crush you with to get you as low as possible, where it gets to the point where it doesn't even make sense for the company to sell a product at that price because the margins are so low. So that's one of the things that they'll definitely look to beat you up when you're a me too. They're going to look at all the other aspects of the other companies and also see, well, right now things are working with them. Is it really worth it for us to take on this new vendor if it's a Me Too product? So all the more when you're getting into these meetings, you have to really differentiate and show why your company is innovative, why your product is innovative. What are the real differences that they cannot get with any other product? And if you have that, then it increases your chances of getting in the room with them. Because if you're going to be another Me Too, it's going to be very difficult, nearly impossible. The key, though, besides that differentiation, one of the keys, and I'll ask everyone this on the call. I know you guys can't answer. Excuse me, guys. And as always, please submit any questions. I forgot to mention that at the beginning of the call. Submit any questions into the chat, and we'll address them about halfway through this discussion. So please, any questions, any thoughts, please put that into the chat right now. And for the rest of the call, I'll address that. But the key differentiator, if you're going up and it's you and another vendor and you guys have the same product, the same everything, all the features and benefits are the same, okay? How do you outsell someone if you two the same exact product? And that's by selling yourself. And what could you bring is service. No matter who you go up against, you're a small vendor. Make it your goal to provide the absolute best service imaginable. Okay. With that, and this happens a lot with smaller companies where they're able to break in. I mean, you have to treat your customers, every single one of them. Everyone says this. Every one of my customers I treat like gold. I don't have any. I have nothing but number one customers. I don't have prioritize from one customer to another. I treat them all the same and give them all A+ service. Now, yes, if you live in, fantasy land too, that's easy to do. But the reality is, guys, that's bullshit. Okay. You can't treat every customer the same when you have hundreds of customers. It's hard. You just don't have the bandwidth and the space. The bigger you're growing, especially with a lot of these larger institutions, larger organizations, they have thousands and thousands of customers. And yes, they try to do their best for everyone. But the reality is some customers bring a lot more value. And you do have to choose sometimes and say, I don't have the bandwidth. I have to prioritize a little bit and get back to this person before I get back to that person. It's just human nature. That's what happens. But when you're a small company, you're not going to have thousands and hundreds of customers. You could have a couple. Sometimes you have one, and it's that one customer that you're going to do everything. So use that. Don't say I'm at a disadvantage because I only have a couple customers, or at the beginning, I don't have any customers. So the service aspect, nobody, if you're dealing with a small company, you only have a couple customers, nobody should be able to provide better service than you do. You should be attentive 24/7. And I mean 24/7. Customer calls you on the weekend, you're answering that call right away. You're getting right on top of whatever they need right away. They call you at night. I don't care what time it is. You're getting on top of that right away and making sure they get the true white glove A+ service that you cannot be, that no one should be able to compete with you with. So that is number one priority, where you're going to provide that service and be as responsive as possible that no one's going to compete with you. When that happens, guys, that's how you can win over customers. Remember that the other huge advantage you have, you don't need to have 100 customers to make an impact. One customer can make you blow out your number, can make your company, blow out their number and do really well. So focus small wins and focus on a couple of organizations or IDNs or whatever your customer is. focus on a few customers because they can really move the needle. All right. Next is finding what your niche is. You know, what is your product do the best? It could be one patient type. It could be a very niche patient that this doctor only sees one a month, or the hospital only sees a couple dozen, every month. They only do a few of those cases. Great. That's awesome. We all want to hit the home run and approach companies that they're doing, hundreds of a specific surgery a day, or this very typical patient type. No, you don't need that. Focus on that small niche market that you provide a real advantage. And one of my old customer companies did this. I mean, when I was working in the robotic space, we were excellent at VT procedures. There wasn't a doctor in cardiology that would object to that. Now, again, there wasn't many VTs as there were AFibs. It was a fraction of the cases. But when it was a VT case and a doctor had our system, they would 100% say, this is the best system to treat VTs, and I'm talking about ventricular tachycardias. And as opposed to AFibs that they were doing, sometimes some hospitals are doing 4 or 5 a day. Okay, so focus on that small niche patient type or case, because you can make a real big impact and be the best at that. If you could differentiate yourself and really specialize, no matter how small it is, it's a way to get your foot in the door. So don't try to hit home runs and go after these very common patient types, or in a space where everyone is in that space, but you just like your product and you came up with it and you think it would be great. That's awesome, guys, to have that mentality. You think you can compete, but you really want to focus on those low-hanging fruit. Focus where maybe a lot of people aren't focusing on. That's where you want to go if you're a small company, because that's how you can break. You got to break in first, and then you could expand. But to come in with an expanded net and think you're going to get in, it's just not going to happen. It's very difficult. Excuse me. Another differentiator is to be able to do a proof of concept, proof of value. And sometimes it's harder for smaller companies because they don't have the funding to do pilot programs. But you really want to be able to be able to do that to break in. Excuse me, I'm talking about not a pilot program, but a trial program to prove your concept, and say, hey, listen, we can do it with the next 50 patients or whatever it is, where a lot of bigger companies, they might not be able to okay a small little trial at a little local community hospital. They might need more. They might need to go to bigger institutions where they can only spend funding on large scale trials, as opposed to small little local communities. So being in that smaller environment essentially gives you more opportunity to do more things, and we'll talk about that, in the next section. Next would be more strategies. What are some of the strategies for success? And this is what I was talking about earlier, is pilot partnerships, where go into a small community hospital. I mean, when you start out and you're a small company, you're basically going where anyone's going to listen to you. So take advantage of these small little community health centers that are still out there. I mean, a lot have been part of larger IDNs now, but go to the small individual, the small partners, lower volume. Sometimes this can happen when you're calling on offices where everyone is going to Dr. Jones, that if you're in pharmaceutical sales, he's a decile 10, which is a high volume prescriber. Everyone's going after them. Focus on, say, the decile 1s and 2s and 3s, where a lot of the big companies don't even waste their time because they don't have the volume. Again, this is your advantage. Partner with one of those doctors. Get in their offices more, even though they only have a patient here or there. That can change your world in a small startup space as opposed to a large organization. So go where most aren't going and focusing on. And you're going to see that only a couple of wins are going to help you hit your goal, help your company become successful. So start there, start in the smaller spaces and do these pilot programs with some of the lower volume hospitals or physicians. Next, you must get, if you're going to grow, and this is even in the bigger space too, dealing with larger organizations, you need a champion, guys. You need a champion physician out there, whether it's in the office-based sales or in the hospitals. Definitely within the hospital space. Doesn't matter what size, you need a clinical champion. And you need someone that does have some say within that hospital or that IDN, because this individual is going to really help you get in front of other doctors, other decision makers to really make an impact. So you need a clinical champion. Doesn't matter the size, but all the more it matters when you're a small vendor. Next, another thing that larger companies, sometimes they can do this, sometimes they can't. So the good thing with a lot of smaller companies, they don't have as much red tape internally when it comes to approaching companies with a different, model to partner with them. In terms of, like I was saying, being maybe coming up with a creative contract that you can work with your boss to write, together, and it could be, crazier, non-conforming or just non-typical structures within the contract, that your boss could be the owner of the company and say, hey, screw it, I don't care if they're not going to pay us the first 6 months. We're not going to, we're going to do a net 90 or a net 120 or whatever that is in terms of payment, where larger companies are saying, no, it's a net 30 or that's it. I mean, that's what happens sometimes. You don't know. But bottom line being, be flexible when it comes to working with these hospitals and organizations. Do whatever it takes to get your foot in the door. Because trust me, all it takes is just that one deal, that one PO, one contract where now you're approved within that hospital system, and then you can really hunt. Then you can really grow that business. But to have that flexibility during the contract phase is very, very important. And you need that flexibility if you're going to be able to break in. So be flexible. Last is that, like we talked about a little bit earlier, is being it's similar to being flexible with the contracts. It's same as being able to adapt faster than the larger organizations. Doctors, a lot of times they want to change the study or the program that you're doing or add certain people. And when you're dealing with larger organizations, whenever they're changing something with the partnership, again, a lot of red flag, a lot of approval layers that have to be involved. So they slow down the process, and nobody wants that. The company doesn't want that, obviously, but sometimes it's just the way things work with larger companies. When you're in a smaller company, there's times that you literally can turn to your boss. Okay, let's do it. Great. Get right back to the doctor or whoever the decision maker is, saying we're all good to go. We made the changes. We'll have that sent to you later today, and we could start tomorrow. That's huge, guys, because sometimes things happen. And I've lost deals too, where when you're waiting to happen and decisions take a long time, doctors, sometimes there's a new initiative that comes along for the hospital that's their focus now. So we lost our opportunity because we waited, and things had to take, they just took, forever to get an okay. When you're in a smaller company, it should happen quickly. So you can be agile and make those changes to work with whatever that physician's requiring. So all these are huge, huge opportunities, guys, that you can take advantage of if you're starting at a smaller company, because there's nothing better to be a small fish, compete with these big players. And once you start to make an impact and get noticed, I mean, if it's structured correctly, your commission or your bonus dollars are going to be outstanding, because you're only impacting one or two different accounts or customers, and all of a sudden it's making a huge impact in your number and for the company's bottom line. That's a great feeling to know that you're a part of the company's success. Without this customer, it affects the company. You're not just a number. A lot of times working for big companies, they have everything laid out for you. They have the structure, they have the training, they have everything at your fingertips, which is great. But now you start making impact here, there, and you're influencing a lot of individuals. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really make that much of an impact in your pocket. And you're not getting the big bonus dollars that you thought because you just got 10 new hospitals on board. But at the end of the day, you're a well-oiled machine, though that money is being spent by your company in the marketing, in the many layers of leadership, in everything else that comes along with a big company. It comes with more expenses. So sometimes it doesn't affect you to impact that many customers. So use that and really get motivated by that. That only takes one or two that you can really make an impact. So, I mean, that basically the big picture is this, guys, is that you want to move away. And this is the goal for everyone. If you could take one takeaway, and it's not easy, I'm just saying words here. It's, there's many different ways to go about it. But at the end of the day, you want to move away from being a vendor to being an actual strategic partner. When they look at you that way, in whatever space it is, that is the goal. When they're looking at you, when they stop saying, and I used to notice this a lot of when I was working in the office space and I would come into the office, speak with the receptionist, maybe talk to the nurse. When you hear them call back about, hey, the sales rep's here, and whatever your company was, the Organon sales rep is here, the Baxter sales rep is here, and that you should take offense to that and against yourself. You should say and get on yourself and say, I'm not doing a good enough job to be seen as Joe. I mean, anyone, they know you as if they're calling you just by your first name when you walk in the office, oh, Dr. Jones, Joe's here. Yeah, that to me is a sign that you're doing a great job, as opposed to the XYZ rep is here, the sales rep is here. To me, that means you're just another vendor. But once they start calling you and referring to you just by your first name, that to me means that you're being close to being an actual partner in the office. Now, of course, there's much more that goes along to that with your service and everything else, but that's a good sign that if they're at least referring to you by your first name, then you're making a positive impact in this office, in that hospital. If you're just another sales rep, the sales reps here, they don't even say your company, that's a really bad sign. If they're like, the rep is here, that means that you're not even making an impact where they don't even know the company you come from. So that's a goal for any of you, that if you notice this, if you're being told the sales rep is here, and they're not at least referring to your company name, but you really want to get to when they're just, Joe is here, not even your last name. He knows who's here just by your first name, and that doctor wants to come out and see you. That means you're making an impact. So do a little evaluation of yourself with your customers, your offices, and see where you are in that regard. Just a small test. That was something I always did, and look back and say, shit, I got to get on it. I'm doing something wrong here that no one even knows my name. That's a bad sign. That means I'm not in this office enough and I'm not making an impact. So just a small little test to see, because the end goal, again, guys, is not to be a vendor, it's to be a strategic partner. But we're about halfway through the call, so this would be a good time for me to shut up and take some questions. James.
Yeah, Joe, you've spoken enough. Be quiet.
Thank you. I'm tired of listening to myself.
We got a couple questions. Do FDA or regulatory requirements create barriers that small vendors can't easily overcome?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Anything in the medical space, especially when you're coming out with new products, especially when you're coming out, say first off in the pharma space, I know the big argument or the big stigma against pharma companies that they're greedy and they charge all this money for medications. This is crazy. It only costs them pennies to make. And yes, that's all true. And once they make a product, it gets approved and now it's available to customers on the market. To make copies of that medication, it is pennies. But to get to that point in that product that they've made is hundreds of millions and millions of dollars to get there. So 90% of the products that come to market in the pharmaceutical space, they get rejected because it doesn't pass mustard with the FDA or the other organizations that are out there, that the whatever testing that they did had some negative results. And sometimes it's only a couple. It could be outstanding feedback. It could be outstanding efficacy. And then there's a couple of adverse events that can prevent that product from getting out there. So it's hundreds of millions for some of these large companies that they sometimes fold. They sometimes can't get the funding. So if you're a little mom and pop, believe me, those are real challenges. And that's the reason why you don't see a lot of smaller companies looking to jump into this space. A lot of mom and pops that want to get in certain spaces because they know how hard it is. You could have the greatest idea, it could be the greatest product, but you can't even get it to market, then that's a challenge. So 100%, that is a big obstacle.
We have, um, where did it go? Do you think the future of med device and pharma sales will be more open to small vendors or less?
Less, 100% less. It's the reality of small vendors. It creates, it's great to have the innovation. We always need that out there. We always need, different organizations coming out challenging whatever the status quo is, or whatever the current usage is for whatever therapeutic area. It doesn't matter, but we need that innovation. We need multiple players always challenging each other, competing against each other, because that's how you get advancements. But it also creates a lot of challenges for these, these hospitals and hospital systems, that we're seeing it in the hospital space. They're combining and becoming bigger hospital systems. The smaller groups out there, they're becoming less and less. So we're seeing this with companies, where companies are constantly buying out other companies. If and then they focus in cardiology, and now they love their product. They buy out the whole company, keep the sales force, and now they're their urology arm of whatever company that is. So they're going to keep consolidating, keep getting bigger and bigger, and it's going to be less and less of the smaller companies out there.
Joe, do GPOs make it harder or easier for small vendors to compete?
It's harder. It's definitely harder. It's the best way to describe a GPO. And if you're a smaller company, for anybody that's ever golfed and you're not a member of a certain country club, and I have friends where, they're, we get on certain country clubs. You could get on because even though you're not a member, but you're friends with the starter who gets people, who starts people on the golf course, and actually is the guy that's there that checks your the time that you're going out, and basically says, okay, guys, you guys are ready to go, and lets you onto the course. Basically, sometimes you have a friend that works there that can get you on one day after 3 o'clock when a lot of the members are away, whatever. And you tip the guy and you can get on the course. Yeah, you can play maybe once in a blue moon, but you're still not a member. You're still not going to be able to play all the time. And it's a stupid analogy, but it's similar to the GPO space. With the larger accounts essentially are the members, and the smaller little mom and pops are those guys that are trying to sneak on the course, where they might use you here and there because they have a specific case. The doctor can make a special request to use someone that's not on the approved list of products. But at the end of the day, guys, you have to get on that GPO list. You got to get on their approved vendor list of products, because that's how you're going to really make an impact. The little onesie twosie cases that you might get in here and there, that's not going to make it for your company. You got to get on there, because the reason why they use GPOs are for pricing discounts. They know that GPO is going to negotiate the best price with the company. And so if you're not on a GPO, you're not getting the best pricing. It's just that simple. That's what GPOs do. They make sure that their customers get the best pricing. So you're not going to be able to be used all over and over and over again at a higher price. So you have to get on that GPO, but they're always going to make it more difficult, because those bigger companies, they should have better margins. Maybe they don't, but trust me, they're going to try to beat you up with price and really come after you with that. Sometimes where it's very difficult for smaller companies to drop their price of their products so much that now they can't even compete with the competition. So it's much more difficult.
Are there certain medical specialties where small vendors have an easier time breaking through?
There's not a specific specialty. Like I can't sit here and say cardiology or neurology or there's anyone out there that's easier because you're smaller. Every place, it's just to generalize, every therapeutic area, as far as I know, there might be a small niche therapeutic area out there that I'm not thinking of right now, but pretty much every therapeutic area, it's going to be easier for the bigger guys to penetrate because they're more well established in that space than a lot of the smaller guys.
Um, Joe, is there a regulation that you wish would change to level the playing field for smaller vendors?
Yeah, I think yes and no. I think that I understand both sides. So while I always want to root for the small medical companies out there, but I do want to be realistic. I mean, they can't. Yeah, you have to have something that's a real differentiator, and
Joe, we
that
lost your mic.
can you hear me?
No, you went silent. You got no input coming in.
Nothing. What if I take off my mic and just talk?
It says your mic isn't connected. I can't hear you, so I just see your lips moving. I don't. No one. Nothing's coming through. Oh, it says the viewers can still hear you, so I can't hear you. We can keep going, but it says no, now they can't. Now they can't hear you. It was delayed. Um, Back out and come back in. And the regularly scheduled program will be right back with us. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
Better.
Yeah, there we go. We got you back.
Okay.
I don't know what happened.
Great.
But,
Great.
thank you, Joe, for letting us. It was another Joe that was keeping us updated on the sound. So
Thank you, Joe.
we are good to go. Joe, if you have any questions, definitely put them in the chat.
Remind me of that last question. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
It was what regulation you wish they would change to level the playing
Yeah.
field.
Yeah. So there's not something that I wish that they would just get rid of, because again, I'm always going to be, want to fight for the small medical companies out there. I understand I've been a part of it. I know the challenges that you face, but the reality is they have to have these in place because everyone and their mother is going to come out with a different product to challenge the status quo, whatever's being used. I would just challenge that. That these are in place. They're not going to magically go away. Really be honest with yourself when you guys are, whoever it is, whatever product you have, that it's a real differentiated product, that it's not a me too. So don't get rid of the bias that you have that you think you have the best product. Really look at it from their point of view. And it could be, like I talked about earlier, it could be a specific patient type where that you're going after that's not what they're seeing every day. It could be a very unique patient type. I'd rather see you do that, but try to show that you're differentiating because the regulations, you could talk all day about getting rid of regulations. There's always going to be a reason for them and it's not going to change. So just find real ways to differentiate your product, or at least as a sales rep, be very specific and what are the advantages of your product? Because these decision makers, you're going to have to know that. And it's got to be real. It's got to be a real differentiator, not that you improve XYZ scores by 2% or something that's minuscule in one study. It's got to be a real differentiator for you to get approved.
We got if you had had to give one piece of advice to somebody starting in med sales without a big brand behind them, what would it be?
Buckle up. I mean, it's real. If you're just breaking into the industry and you're selling a product that because here's the reality. The bigger companies, they have a lot of relationships. So what you're going to go up against, you're going to get doctors that sometimes, I mean, doctors get patients from other doctors. They get referrals. Okay, so if you're in the spine space and doctors are getting referrals from, say, primary care physicians, a lot of these large companies know not only the spine doctors, they also know the primary care doctors. And it's two reps. One works with primary care all day long. Another rep works with spine all day long. And they want to get that relationship to build more a bigger referral base. I mean, it's as simple as, hey, Joe, can you call Dr. Jones? I'm working with Dr. Smith. They would like to get together because he can, really help his patients out with this new spine procedure. And it would be great for Dr. Whoever the spine guy is to be able to grow his patient base. Obviously, he's going to get more revenue and be able to help more patients. So it's a win-win for both sides. It could be just calling someone on your team that quickly. When you're by yourself, you don't have any of that. You're trying to not only struggle enough to get in front of the spine doctor, but now you don't even have the relationships with primary care because you're new in this space. So that is one of the biggest, I don't want to say one of the biggest, it's another challenge that if you're not in this space, it's hard to overcome. They have a lot of individuals that are working in that company that has those relationships. And so I would just you know, be prepared of what the challenges really are. It's not easy to just come in there with that small company you're just starting out and make an impact. Realize that there's real challenges. I'm not trying to scare you off, but just be prepared that it's not going to be easy. It's going to be an uphill battle. But think of it though, the bright side is you're only going to need a couple of those guys to really blow out your number and make real money. So the big companies, it sounds great, but sometimes they have to improve market share from 90 to 95%. That is really hard, guys. Doctors are sitting here going, you want me to give it to another patient, in this unique area? I'm already giving it to everyone that I can possibly think of. And you're trying to get your market share up with these physicians. These are real conversations that you're like, well, would you see the benefits in using it on XYZ patient or that patient? Because there's still a few patients he doesn't give this to. And it's hard to grow from 90 to 95% market share. It's easier to go from 0 to 5 or 10% market share. So just remember that. It might not seem that when you're in that position, but it's 90 to 95 is very hard. I would not want to be in that position. For me, if I would do it all over again, yes, working for the big organizations to get the training and everything is awesome, but I would still like to be with the smaller companies to really, if I make an impact, I know I'm going to get rewarded from it. And I don't have to grow small percentage points from 90 to 95, 88 to 92. I'd rather go from 0 to 10 or 0 to 20 because, again, you can make a lot more money that way.
Do you think social media and other digital tools are making small vendors, giving small vendors a new way to compete?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, it's again, when I started, I'm going to sound like an old fart, but we used to invite doctors to dinners by printing out either actual invites or leaving notes and dropping it off at the office. And then you'd have to hope that the nurse or the receptionist, whoever that was, didn't actually get your note and just throw it out. I mean, a lot of times they would show the doctor, but you would have to actually go back a day or two later and be like, "Hey, did Dr. Jones ever get that?" And then that's how you actually spoke with a lot of doctors that you couldn't see by just walking in. You'd have to leave notes. So to go from that to what we've come from, where you post something and thousands, millions of people can see it, absolutely. It's just you got to deal with whatever restrictions and limitations your company has, because obviously they don't want reps going out there just creating their own marketing campaigns with the products they have. So as long as you're doing what the company says is allowed, but you have to be taking advantage of that. I mean, there's so many other ways. Before, you used to get excited if you got a doctor's cell phone. You could get his email, but a cell phone was like, wow, if you got a cell phone number, you know he's going to see that. And now in this day and age, I mean, to be honest, if someone has my email or my cell phone number, it doesn't really matter. If they're shooting me a text or sending me an email, it's going to pop up on my phone. I'm going to see it. So that's just for me. So I think you have to be taking advantage of all these different platforms. Whatever it takes to get your messaging across to the doctor, do it. And having all the social media access can only help you. So definitely take advantage even if you're in a big company, any company, you have to be using that.
Do trial programs ever backfire if the product doesn't wow right away?
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's your job as a sales rep, is to set expectations and to, you don't want to sit here and say, wait, doctor, when you see this product, it's going to be amazing. It's going to knock your socks off 100% of the time. You want to, if you're smart, number one, you don't want one case. If you get it approved, if doctor says, I'll try it out on one case, you're going to set yourself up for failure right off the bat, because then you're just crossing your fingers that it's a home run case that blows the doctors, blows them away. It could happen. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. That sometimes does happen where it's a perfect case. Everything goes smoothly. Home run, great. But set yourself up for success and ask for 5 cases, 10 cases, where you know that challenges are going to come up every once in a while. You don't want to cross your fingers that one case is going to make or break you. So get commitment for multiple cases and be realistic about some of the challenges that might come up. Because you don't want to sit here and say, I have the super duper product that never, ever anything goes wrong. It's going to go wrong in your case, and it's going to be very difficult to get that next case. So get the commitment for a bigger trial. That's the key. And set expectations. So when bad things happen, it's not as catastrophic as you're going for that, home run for one case.
How do you handle it when a big company undercuts your price just to push you out?
It sucks. I mean, the reality is I did this. Whenever I heard a doctor tell me, Joe, I'm only paying this for your product, I would have that knee jerk reaction, go to my boss and say, hey, they're only paying $1,000. We're charging $2,000. We got to come down or they're never going to use this. And I was just, that's straight up. The doctor said it's 1,000. We're charging them too. We got to drop our price to get there. And that's not the approach you want to take, guys. Really, I used to always get mad at managers when they'd be like, we can't drop our price, go back in there. And again, you got to be realistic. So to potentially get some sort of reduction from your company. But a lot of times when you're a smaller vendor, you're not going to be able to compete with the pricing of the bigger institutions. It's just not possible. So you got to focus on where you do stand out and why what's the justification for your higher price? What are they really getting by being able to do that? And that's where you got to focus on. You don't want to focus on trying to compete with pricing all the time, because you're going to lose. And you're going to wind up quitting the job because you're going to say, my company's not listening. They're not dropping the price. And believe me, there's thousands and thousands of small companies out there that did not pay attention so much on trying to compete with price with big vendors, and they were able to make an impact. So focus on how you stand out. Don't focus on price all the time, because you will lose to the big companies and it's going to frustrate you. Focus on what really separates you.
How do reimbursement hurdles hit small vendors compared to big ones?
Well, like anything else, if to just simplify numbers, $5,000, it could mean nothing to a big company. If they're, if numbers are off $5,000 at a big company, most big companies, and I'm generalizing, they're going to say that they broke even. They're not even going to talk about that 5,000 that they were down for the year or the month. They're going to say essentially numbers were the same. 5,000 could be a lot for a small company. I'm just using that as a made up number. So just think of that with reimbursement changes. Sometimes it could be a 10% drop, say Medicare for one therapeutic area, one type of test, they drop their reimbursement by 10%. Now, usually when Medicare does something, the the private the private companies start to follow suit. So if they drop their reimbursements in a certain procedure, eventually some of the private companies are going to do the same thing. So now when you are multiplying that over X amount of patients that are your company is supporting, in all those cases now that they're getting that 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 drastic or that 10% drop, you guys only have one product where some of the larger companies could have 1,000 products. So that one product dropping 10% doesn't really crush them. They don't really feel it because they've gotten gains in other areas for whatever reason. So they can make up for that. Yours is one product. You get a drop in that and a reimbursement hit. It could be catastrophic and actually put you out of business. So it's something that is definitely going to affect the smaller companies much, much more, excuse me, typically than those bigger companies.
We got do wins look different for small vendors compared to big reps?
Yes, I would say small vendors. You got to focus on small wins sometimes. I mean, if you're starting up with a true startup, say, into a new territory where you have no business, no one has even sold one of your products yet, you got to focus on those small wins. I mean, your first win could be, I just want to get an appointment booked with a physician. I mean, I used to count sometimes how many doctors actually even talked to me. When we had our own company, that's what we did. I mean, we went out there and just whoever would talk to us, that was a win. I had 5 conversations today. That could be a win. I actually sent out 100 emails and 3 people got back to me. Sounds crazy, but that's a win. As long as you're moving the ball forward, that's where I would focus as a smaller company and with limited small market share. Again, those small wins you have to focus on because you're not going to get a sale the first day you go in the field. Typically, it's going to take time. So if you don't focus on small wins and create some sort of pathway of small successes that can help you hit your goal, you're going to be very frustrated. And the big companies, things a lot of times are already in place. They already have sales. It's like I was talking about before, moving from 90 to 95% market share is not easy. So you have to focus on, if you're in the smaller space, focus on those small wins because that's what's going to keep you sane and not want to lose your mind every night from not getting a deal or really making a big impact overnight.
We have. Is it common for hospitals to take advantage of trial programs without ever committing to buy?
Definitely. I mean, and this is very important. It's a great question actually, because you're also not in the space where you have to have everything lined up in terms of deliverables on your end and what you're actually going to be able to provide for them. You don't want to overpromise because I've seen some of these trials get out of control where doctors originally were asking for say 100 cases, then they all of a sudden want to do a study of 5,000 patients, like things that are just not going to happen. Um, there's got to be some deliverables and commitments on both ends, and you got to have those discussions ahead of time because these trials could go south, or get out of hand. And you're not going to be able to do trials at every institution just to get your foot in the door because it makes you feel good. Because at the end of the day, nothing can happen from this. And companies know that. So you need a commitment from the whoever you're working with, whatever customer you're working with, and have deliverables on both ends that if your product is able to show this, then they could commit to X or whatever that is. But it has to be set up ahead of time. That's very important when you're structuring one of these trials. It's like a contract, same thing. You're structuring the agreement, and it's got to work on both sides because you can't just go around doing free trials left and right. No company's going to do that, no matter what size they are. Even the big companies are going to have a very structured trial of what they're delivering and what the hospital or their customer, what deliverables are going to be on their end.
We have what's the key what's the key to getting doctors or hospitals to take you seriously when you're not in a with a big brand?
And that's going to be what you prove to them over time. That's showing them that you're an asset, that you're not just another annoying vendor, another annoying sales rep. I mean, everyone that walks in that door for the first time, the odds are, guys, they roll their eyes, they go, "Oh, geez, another sales rep," and they like want to like they cringe because in their mind they see someone else that's going to talk their ears off, that's going to take time away from patients, that's going to have a product that is similar to the other products. These are some of the thoughts that go through their mind. So you got to overcome that because many people, everyone comes in that position, but there's many that within months and years, sometimes, however long it takes, now they're welcoming them with open arms. They smile, get excited when they see them. They know that you're bringing value. If you're working with their patients too, the patients love you, where that also helps. So all these things take time. It's the same as any other relationship. For any of you out there that aren't in the space, it's the same thing as someone that now you're very close with. You didn't meet that person like that. It took time to build that relationship. So it's the same thing in this space. It's going to take time for them to really start to warm up to you and see the value as, like we talked about earlier, going from being a vendor to a strategic partner. It takes time, but it comes with that customer service, that persistence, that always being there, that always, bringing value, and you'll eventually get there.
Um, have you ever seen a trial program completely change a doctor's mind about the product?
Oh, absolutely. I've seen that a lot, actually. So again, it's setting up those expectations. Don't overpromise. Doesn't work. But when you see that happen, when you're able to prove something live, and that was always, that's always very challenging, no matter what space you're in. For me, it was always harder for the pharma space because it takes a longer period of time. A lot of times it takes more patients to be on a product for them to really see the results of how this is helping a patient. Some of those things just seem to take more time and more volume. Sometimes you're in a device case, a doctor literally can feel with their hands whenever they're moving a catheter inside a patient, and they're, wow, I like the way this feels, or I like the way it maneuvered, throughout the atrium or wherever they're going inside the heart. And they'll tell you right away, like as you're speaking with them, and you could see those like holy shit moments, and a light bulb go off. That's an amazing feeling. So it's happened during trials where it could be one case that all of a sudden the doctor, it worked really well on a difficult patient, and that doctor can be, fully committed to using your product. But it's an amazing time. It's an amazing feeling when you do see it happen live in these cases, and it definitely does happen.
Um, Joe, is it true that some purchasing managers don't even give small vendors a meeting?
100%. Just that simple. Yeah. Sometimes they don't. So now it's up to you. What do you do when they don't? And that's the same thing as what do you do when it doesn't matter what the reasoning is. They can put on their door, we do not see small vendors. You must be over, 500 employees for us to talk to you. Are you going to just give up? Because trust me, most people are going to say that. Who? They're going to look at your card and go, who the heck is this? We already work with these 3 big companies. Why do we need someone else? I'm not wasting my time with this. It's going to complicate things. I don't need to do this. I don't care enough. I mean, this is real. So I can't stop. I can't go back to my company and say, no, we're too small for them. They said they only deal with big vendors. The companies go, okay, that's the way you feel. We'll find someone else to do your job. So it's about being creative and figuring out the ways to get your messaging across, because it's good to assume that all purchasers are not going to want to deal with a small vendor. Everyone's not going to want to deal with you. So what do you do? So approach that in every appointment, every meeting, or excuse me, every new customer you're getting in front of. And trust me, forcing yourself to get creative and step outside the box to come up with new creative ways to speak to someone and get your messaging across is going to help you in the long run. So it's a good question, because I think everyone should approach that. No one's going to want to speak to you because you're small, it's a good way to get the creative juices going so you can come up with ways to get in front of them.
All right, I got one more question for you, Joe. Since we missed about a minute, we'll end it on this one.
Sure.
Go a little overtime today. Um, I know I have to hustle hard, whether I'm a small vendor or working with a big company. But how much harder is it as a small vendor?
Yeah, I mean personally, I mean, I appreciate the question, but to I can't give a like you should work 50, you must have to work 50% or 25% harder. Eh, Everyone has a hard job, guys. But this isn't a talk to say small vendors is it's tough and big vendors it's easy. That's not true. Everyone in this industry has a tough job. If it was so easy, they wouldn't hire sales reps. They just wouldn't. Why pay for a sales rep if it's so easy to get their messaging across to a doctor? So every job is hard, small or big. I'm just saying if you're gonna, it's I don't know the percentages, I don't know the multiplier of how many times harder. I just know that if you're coming in as a small vendor into a new space where you don't have any business, it's difficult and you just got to figure it out. That's the challenge. So, but big or small, it's always going to be hard because even if people are using you, like I said earlier, you work for a big company, they're going to want your company's going to want the market share to be higher. So it's never going to be everything is great, guys. You're doing a great job. We're not going to pressure you and look to grow any further. You're doing great the way things are. It's always going to be more pressure. It's always going to be difficult, always a higher number, harder number to hit. So it doesn't matter which side you're on, big or small, everything's hard. And just go out there and break your ass. And you got to figure it out as you're doing it to hit your numbers and achieve success. But
That's
I
all I got for you,
appreciate the
Joe.
question. Good. I'm sorry, James.
Oh, I thought you were finished. I was just saying that's all I got for you today.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you guys for all the questions. Some tough ones out there. So I always appreciate the challenging ones too. Uh, and again, guys, this is more of a experienced conversation, more of an advanced talk, but I think it's good for all levels to understand what they're getting into. Uh, if any of you, again, want to see copies of this, please please subscribe to Unfiltered Medical Sales Coaching on YouTube. You'll get copies of all this, all the podcast content. But even more importantly, the RepPath Academy, guys, we are flying. We're doing very well with all our candidates throughout the country to help them get placed into this industry. So anyone that is looking to break in, please reach out to me, shoot me a message, and we could set up an intro call so you understanding of exactly what the RepPath Academy provides. So please do that. Anyone that is a lobby member, to get additional discounts, please put the promo code Licata whenever you contact me into the message. That's Licata. And you'll be able to get additional discounts for some of your lobby members that are listening. And besides that, guys, thank you for listening. Again, we're here every Monday and Wednesday at 3 p.m. to do these podcasts. And I appreciate all your support and look forward to seeing you and speak with you guys soon. Take care.